Solo mining is the embodiment of the original dream, a defiant act of individual sovereignty where one person, one node, and one miner take a stand against centralized control. We don't just mine for profit, we mine for principle. We mine for ourselves and for each other and for the unyielding spirit at Bitcoin's core. Join us as we dig in and hold the line. This is the Home Mining Podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Home Mining Podcast by Satoshi. I'm your host, Two Sats, and today we're sitting down with Ryan Ramminger, founder and CEO of Cryobite Labs and an innovator in the Bitcoin home mining space. His hands-on experience and expertise and sharp insights are redefining what's possible from your own home mining setup. In this episode, you can expect a deep dive, high-impact conversation, and we're going to unpack the tech, the strategy, and the future of mining Bitcoin at home with the NerdQaxe Plus Hydro. So let's roll, let's get hashing, and let's get into it. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Awesome intro. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Pleasure, man. Really looking forward to learning more about what you guys have innovated on and cooked up for everybody.
Awesome. Me as well. Can't wait to share it.
Right. Let's get right into it then.
Cool.
Cryobite Labs is making waves with a direct-to-chip cooling solution for Bitcoin mining. Can you give us just a quick overview of what you guys have cooked up? What's Cryobite Labs all about, and what inspired you to start the company?
Definitely. So kind of a long story for all of that, so we'll try to keep it as brief as possible. But I personally got into Bitcoin back in 2012. I was actually a senior in college at the time. I was pursuing my degree in finance and economics. I was working at a bank as well, and I was doing research for an unrelated product when I stumbled upon Bitcoin. And I'm the type of guy that if I find something fascinating, I'm going to take the next 10 hours to dive down that rabbit hole and learn all about it. So as soon as I did, I was hooked. Like I mentioned, I was working at a bank. So every day I was dealing with foreign currency transactions and wire transfers. I knew how, check processing went. And to me, it was shocking that here we were back in 2012, manually mailing checks down to like a central processing plant where somebody would physically look at them and type in the information on thousands of checks. It blew my mind. So when I read about Bitcoin and all the advantages Bitcoin has, how you can send money really anywhere in the world for pennies, it's available within minutes, it's immutable, it's decentralized. To me, I was instantly hooked. I was like, this is going to have a ton of traction. This is something we've never seen before, and I knew that it was going to catch on. And then at the time, as I continued to go down that rabbit hole, it hit me at the perfect time because I was taking classes at my college focused on money and banking, the history of money, everything about all of that. So it's like, holy crap, this hit me at the perfect time. So when I combined the efficiency of Bitcoin with all of the other aspects of Bitcoin, I saw this new asset class being created in real time. So I was telling everybody about it back in 2012. They all, of course, thought I was an idiot and off my rocker. But here we are today, 13 years later, a little bit later than I thought would happen. But I think we're starting to finally reach that point. So a couple years after I found out about Bitcoin, I dove into Bitcoin mining. I actually started mining on my cell phone because I was a poor recent college grad, didn't have money to buy these cool GPU rigs at the time. So my cell phone was almost like my first BitAxe. It was just a learning experience. I was solo mining, wasn't doing it for the money. I was, spending a couple cents of power every day, but I was fascinated by the aspect of Bitcoin mining. Fast forward a couple years later, I bought my first ASICs. I ran them in my basement here in Ohio, and I noticed obviously that they produce a ton of heat. So in the wintertime, it was helping to offset my heating bills. I lived in a 100-year-old house that was super inefficient. It seemed like my furnace was always on. So when those Bitcoin miners were running, they produced heat. It offset my bills. So to me, it was, with the economic brain, it was a win-win. I had one cost input, and I was producing two different products, heat and sats. So I started to get into heat reuse pretty early on. This was back before the S19 hydros were released. So I was, building things to capture that heat in liquid. Went down the immersion hole for a little bit, but decided that this probably wasn't where I wanted to invest my time or money, because hydro to me seemed more efficient, lower cost, and had better physical properties for both cooling and heating. So we started to actually develop our own direct-to-chip liquid cold plates that you could strap on a Bitcoin miner and capture that heat and use it for other purposes. As we were going down that rabbit hole, the S19 was introduced, the S19 Hydro came out, and it kind of confirmed my thought that Hydro was going to be the direction that Bitcoin mining was going to go. We've continued on to make our direct-to-chip cold plates, because another thing we discovered when we were capturing heat is when you try to capture the most heat and you draw the most heat off your miner, you actually cool it really well. And there are a ton of advantages to keeping a miner running nice and cool. You get better efficiencies, you get longer lifespan of your hardware. So we started to invest even more into that cold plate production. We started to produce cold plates that had tiny micro fins and micro channels, optimized coolant flow, so a whole variety of cooling. As we were actually at a heat reuse summit, shout out to the Space and the Undermined summit, actually just this past February, we learned a lot about the open source movement. We met Michael Schmidt, who's a big contributor to OSMU. He really liked our products. We really loved the idea of open source. And he kind of orange pilled us on the idea of open source and home mining. So to me, it was fascinating because I have started as a home miner, mining on my cell phone 13 years ago. I've always loved home mining. I'm a pleb home miner at heart. So the chance to develop cooling products for home miners was super fascinating. So we got back from that conference back in February. We put our nose to the grindstone and we started to develop our first ever open source home mining product, which is actually what you see right behind me here. It is a NerdQaxe plus Hydro. So
just turn your camera a bit. It's out of the shot right now.
Oh, sorry about that.
There she is. Look at
that.
Beautiful.
So here we are today. We actually just officially released the initial teasers. So we can start talking about what we've been working so hard on. So I know that was a really long-winded answer to your question, but hopefully that gives some people some context of kind of who I am and how we got to where we are today.
That was great. Great context for everybody that might not be familiar with you and what you guys are doing. Man, we're gonna jump into the stuff at the Undermined Summit and meeting Schmitty and all those things. But first, I gotta ask you, just for my own curiosity, like, what was that like mining on a cell phone back in the day? Like, what was that experience, and what was the payout like back then?
Oh, I mean, it was awful. It was exactly what you would think it would be. Cell phones brutally hot. You had to balance the heat on both your CPU, but even more so your battery, because the energy is obviously pulled from the battery. Your phone had to be plugged in at all times. So I ended up using my old cell phone to do mining on, to keep my new phone up and active. But it was awesome to be able to dive into all that because, like people are experiencing today with these home miners, there's so much that you can do with it. There's so many avenues. It sparks so many new curious thoughts, and you go down farther down that rabbit hole. So definitely don't recommend it. It wasn't efficient. I wasn't in it for the money. I don't even think I paid anything out, to be honest with you. But it was just about learning about mining, helping to support this idea that I loved, which was Bitcoin. So, yeah. Wouldn't recommend it today, but well worth the time to learn about mining.
Amazing, yeah. And it sounds like you were like one of the OG heat punks before heat punk was a term too. So that's fascinating. We have a big love for the heat punk movement here on the show, and the Space as well. The Space Denver. We love Tyler and Dylan and the boys over there. They're doing great work. So it's cool that you guys are all connected. All roads are kind of connected in Bitcoin mining. You know, everybody kind of knows everybody and learns from everybody else, and that's the beauty of the open source development.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of funny how small the space actually is, but it's great to work with people like that, like-minded individuals. We were kind of doing our own thing here in Ohio, and I had actually been following Tyler. Think he's a brilliant guy. Love everything that he does. So when he started posting about heat reuse and specifically about direct-to-chip cooling, that's when I reached out and I was like, man, we've been doing this stuff for years. What can we do to help you? And he helped us with a lot of stuff. We hope to contribute more with him. So it was just great. It's awesome working with those people.
Awesome, man. Well, for our listeners that are kind of new to the concept, can you just explain what direct to chip or hydro cooling means in the context of Bitcoin mining and BitAxes, and why is it a game changer compared to the traditional air cooling that we get with the fans?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's kind of hard to think about hydro cooling because typically water and electronics don't make a good match. So when people hear about it, they're like, I'm kind of sketched out by this. But basically what happens is when you're mining Bitcoin, you have ASIC chips that produce a lot of heat. And that heat needs to be exhausted or else your miner will pretty much instantaneously burn out. So traditionally what you have is you have a heat sink that's attached to that ASIC chip. Heat spreads from the ASIC chip into the heat sink, and then a fan blows cold air over that heat sink that exhausts that heat into the atmosphere. With hydro cooling, it's a very similar concept, but instead of using a heat sink, you use what's called a cold plate. So the cold plate makes direct contact with the ASIC chip, and then inside that cold plate, it's contained, totally solid, no leaks or anything like that. You have a circulating coolant, which is typically water, that absorbs the heat, and then you can pump that coolant elsewhere, either for heat reuse, or you can then exhaust it over a radiator unit into the atmosphere. The benefit of cooling with liquid is that liquid, particularly water, can remove a lot more heat than air can. So we're starting to hit our limits on how much heat air can remove. We got these really loud fans. Obviously, if you've heard an industrial miner like an S19 or S21 from Bitmain, they're super loud because those fans need to push through so much air in order to remove that heat. But with liquid cooling, you can actually just put a simple loop, couple liters a minute through a miner, and it's able to collect all of that heat and move it elsewhere. So you can get better cooling, you can get better efficiencies, you can keep your ASIC chips running cooler, which can expand their lifespan. So there's a ton of advantages to using liquid to cool compared to air.
Amazing. I imagine that's going to be a real game changer for something like the BitAxe, where you see people like tinkering and overclocking and experimenting in all kinds of ways. So this will allow people to have a little bit more leeway and capability with what they're doing.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you can, I don't recommend pushing these things because you can break things if you push them too far. But what I'll say is that this unit stays extremely cool in really any environment. The other cool thing about providing better cooling is that you can actually reduce your fan speeds. You can exhaust that heat over a larger surface area. So instead of having, small fans that have to blow a ton of air through a small space, when you expand that surface area and you use slower fans to exhaust that heat, it reduces the noise as well. So you can get better cooling, you can get lower noise levels. So yeah, I think it'll be a game changer as well.
Amazing. You mentioned before that you transitioned to ASIC mining, from the cell phone, big leap there, and you began experimenting with the heat reuse stuff, like warming your house. Can you share like a memorable moment from those early experiments or those early days that made you realize heat management was a big opportunity?
Yeah, I think what a lot of miners go through when they start working with heat reuse is actually the noise of the fan. So that was one thing that was memorable to me, probably not in a good sense, but I remember laying my head down at night and hearing the hum of the fans. Again, I'm in a 100-year-old house, noise travels everywhere. The miners were in my basement, but you could still hear them humming through the AC vents. And I remember just laying down, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. That's actually what led me to liquid cooling. Was I wanted to reduce that noise, to exhaust that heat over a larger surface, just like we talked about. But the whole idea was, I'm saving a ton of money on my furnace. I'm going to use these miners to heat my home. How do we make it viable on a larger scale? So that was definitely a memorable moment for me.
And so that there led to the idea of the direct to chip cold plate.
Exactly. That led me to really liquid cooling to start. And again, we kind of went down the immersion rabbit hole for a little while. I have thoughts on that, and I won't even get into it all on why immersion has taken off. But hydro now, we really see that as being the main liquid cooling solution. But so we went down the liquid cooling route, and then we quickly changed to hydro once we actually built with immersion. So another memorable moment for me was we built this entire immersion setup to capture and reuse this heat. and we had the tank sitting on our desktop or our workbench there. We had it filled up. We were testing it all, and then it was working perfectly, except for the fact that that was not where we wanted the tank to be. So here we have hundreds of pounds of immersion fluid in a glass tank at the time, and we ended up having to move our workbench and keep the tank there because it was going to be such a hassle to move all that oil, all the miners, all the tubing and everything. So that's when we quickly changed to hydro, much more efficient, easier to work with, lighter build, smaller form factors, things like that. So
What's the main differences between the immersion and the hydro cooling for somebody that's new to BitX?
yeah, great question too. So water conducts electricity. So you cannot just dunk your miner in a bucket of water. It'll short it out. It's extremely dangerous. You don't want to do that. Immersion fluid is what's called a dielectric fluid. So it does not conduct any electricity. So you can actually dunk your entire miner in there. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt the miner. So that was really easy to do back in the day when we had like S9s, because heat sinks were not removable. They were actually glued on to each ASIC. And I've pulled off thousands of those from S9s. It would be a pain in the butt. So it was real easy to take that entire miner and just put it in this bucket of oil and provide better cooling. Then it would be to take off every single heat sink, sand down all your chips. It's called chip lapping. Sand down all your chips to make them perfectly even, and then to slap a direct-to-chip cold plate on there. So the difference, though, again, to get back to it, is dielectric fluids do not conduct electricity where water does. So you have to have this entire bucket full of oil. That oil circulates and picks up the heat. Whereas with water, you contain it inside the little block, inside that cold plate. So you actually, with like immersion cooling, you use tons of gallons of immersion fluid. Whereas with direct-to-chip cooling, you use maybe a fifth of a liter or a gallon to cool an entire miner. So it's use a very minimal amount of fluid because it's all contained inside that little block.
And we're starting to see that with like industrial sized miners with like the was it the S21 hydro, or is it S19?
S21 hydro, S19 hydros. They have all of the versions. We have, Orodyne. We have Seal miners. We have What's miner. I mean, they're all moving towards hydro. And if you look at the most profitable miners right now, I just checked a few months ago, but so correct me if I'm wrong, but 8 out of the top 10 most profitable miners at the moment are all hydro miners. And it's because you can fit so much power and density into those miners because cooling them is not an issue because of the power of water.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And obviously, I think the direction that we're going to continue on for the near future because of just how efficient that sounds.
Exactly. Yep. We're, again, reaching limits at what you can cool with just fans alone. So miners, as they're looking for better efficiency, better quality builds, longer lifespans, they're all typically moving to a liquid-cooled solution.
Amazing. Man, let's jump into your story, your journey of embracing the open source mining movement. So I know you attended the Undermined Summit in Denver earlier this year, and you met Michael Schmid, a key figure, really, in the open source mining community. Tell us about the experience and the story and how it inspired you to align what you're doing with the open source ethos.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was such a great summit. Loved meeting all those guys there, but in particular, Schnitzel. He really explained to us the whole movement. As we're working on heat reuse solutions and capturing heat and trying to decentralize hash rate through heat reuse, we saw the open source movement growing, side by side. We saw BitAxes coming online. We saw people producing these and liking these. So when Schmitty sat down and really told us the whole ethos behind it, we were orange-pilled right away. And it really comes from, we're builders at heart. We build nonstop. We've worked with a lot of companies, a lot of closed source hardware. And when you're trying to build on that, you constantly are hitting roadblocks. You're constantly hitting gatekeeping. You need to cross off all these checkboxes in order to get certain documents that you need to build things. It really slows the pace of innovation. And when you have open source, and I can tell you firsthand experience, building this thing was way easier and more efficient in all ways than building anything we've done for industrial miners or closed source hardware. So when you think about it, if we want to encourage building, if we want to inspire home mining, if we want to come out with these machines that support the Bitcoin network, it makes sense to do that in the most efficient way possible. And to me, that's obviously open source. It was amazing being able to have documents provided that give you all the measurements that you need, that give you all the data you need to be able to build things. And then even better was the actual community. I think they're at over 8,000, maybe even close to 10,000 members on the OSMU Discord right now. And what has been amazing is if we ever do run into a problem or if we have an issue, somebody out there has probably had that same problem. And when you're working with closed source mining, no one's going to tell you the answer to it. But when you're working with open source, everybody's helping each other out. So it becomes this very efficient community of builders where you can really push the limits of what's possible. And when you think long term, I mean, I'm biased to this, but when you think long term, I think open source is going to eat closed source for lunch, because the way that they can innovate, the way that they can encourage building is unlike anything you can do with closed source proprietary hardware. So as soon as we really grasped that concept, especially as builders, we were like, dude, we are all in. How can we help support this? How can we build a product for it?
No doubt about it. The open source revolution is well and truly on. It's unstoppable, and it's just going to be a matter of time. I don't know how much time. I'm with you there. It's going to take some time, but it is going to happen. We are going to prevail. And, what better than a bunch of people that are kind of there for the same reasons and really trying to push innovation and adoption and just really grow this thing that they're all passionate about. Whereas, this closed source stuff, it's such bullshit. It's such a headache, and it really stifles innovation. And that's by design, obviously, as you know. Yep. That's their profits. Whereas what we're doing in the BitX space is primarily ideological, right? So you see a lot of people very willing to participate in the open source advancement of all of this stuff. So that's great.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome, man. To that point, like, what are you guys going to do at Cryobite Labs to encourage collaboration, which is sort of like the spirit of the open source movement? How are you going to contribute to the community, and what makes open source mining so important for the future of Bitcoin, in your opinion?
Yeah, really good question there. So when we set out, we really had three goals in mind with this product that we've built. The first one was to really draw attention to open source and home mining again. We wanted to create a product that physically drew people's eyes to it, where they said, what is that? Because open source to me is like a snowball, and home mining is the same way, where when you get people that see it, that are interested in it, that start contributing to it, it starts that snowball rolling down the hill, and then more people get involved. There are more breakthroughs. There's more innovation that occurs. And as soon as that ball keeps going, it gets to a point where it can't be stopped. So our thought is, how can we create a product that draws that attention, that gets people involved, new people who maybe don't own a BitX or who aren't familiar with it, to stop and say, what the heck is that? Literally just to click on it and say, what is this thing doing? Because we think that as that snowball gets rolling, it can't be stopped. And then open source and home mining stand a chance at surviving. The second goal that we had was to provide a very professional and high performance product. So everything that we do at Cryobite is high performance, it's quality. We do not cut corners. We will try to jam as much quality into a particular product as we can. And we did the exact same thing with this build. We wanted to give the open source community and the home miners a very high performing but quality build. So whether it's the copper weight inside the PCB that helps dissipate heat better, the all-in-one cooler that's completely sealed with coolant, totally safe for operation, keeps your ASICs running cool, even down to small rubber bumper pads on the bottom of our steel stand that help minimize noise. We didn't cut any corners with this build. We wanted to deliver the community something that was super high class and high performance. And then the third thing was we wanted to push those boundaries with open source and with home mining. We wanted to show people what was possible. We want to spark curiosity, so people take hydro builds and they start making their own hydro builds. There was a lot of heat punks involved who want to take this type of model, use hydro cooling to capture that heat and reuse it. So being able to be a builder and provide that to the community, we want to help inspire new ideas, contribute as much as we can. So those were our three goals when we started. I think we knocked them all out of the park, and we're hoping again to contribute that way, that momentum to help grow both home mining and open source.
I love it, man. Those are some noble goals, and in the spirit, it's in alignment with the spirit of the open source movement. So that's great.
Definitely.
You know, while I don't have one in my hands or in my arsenal over here yet, just looking at that thing buzzing away back there, changing colors, you definitely nailed number one on your list of
Yeah.
making it something that's really attractive to look at and catches your attention and draws you in. I mean, I love the LED, the colors changing back and forth there. It definitely levels up the aesthetics of the BitAxe, the NerdAxe, things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to sit next to, your computer or in your office or on your shelf or whatever it to be. And we want it to be something that you're proud to look at, something that you get excited about. And I can tell you that after creating this and having these sit on my desk being tested for the past month, I stare at it all day. It's amazing just to walk by it and you just kind of stop and you're like, man, that thing's beautiful. So I agree. I think we nailed it on that, and we hope others see the value. And again, hope it can drive more attention, which means more people involved in open source and home mining.
It reminds me of you know how like a lot of gamers and just people with like their man caves, they have like the LED keyboards that light up, change colors, their PC tower, all those kinds of things. I think that thing would really go perfectly on the desk beside all of that. So mission accomplished, man. That looks
100%.
fantastic. Yeah, I can see why you would just kind of stop and stare at it.
Yeah, it's eye catching for sure.
Absolutely. Are there any specific ideas or conversations from the Undermined Summit, other than the one that we just talked about, that kind of directly influenced the development of the NerdQaxe plus Hydro?
I think the whole idea of the summit, so that was probably the best summit I've ever been to. It was such a tight-knit community. The Heat Punks are an awesome group, so to be part of that was huge. But to see that the heat reuse movement is picking up steam, it's pretty hard to build for that because everything is so custom, everything is so unique to your situation that you can't just have a product one size fits all. But the goal with this is that this would be like our first product. We have plans to have a ton more products down the road, some of those focusing on heat reuse, because if you can turn your Lotto miner into your water heater as well, again, you're creating or you're accomplishing two tasks with one energy input. So that was kind of the ethos is let's get this product out there. Let's, again, catch those eyeballs. Let's show the quality that we can create. But then to pull in that heat punk movement that we discussed, that we saw at the summit, that's really on the table for the future. So that was top of mind as we were building this.
I've heard from so many people that was the best conference or summit that they've ever been to. So I'm going to
Hands
put that
down.
on my list as something that I have to go to. Never actually been to a conference yet. So, living where I live, it's a little bit tricky to get to these. But there's definitely a few like the BTC++ that I really wish I was at in Austin this year. And then the Heat Punk Summit, the Undermined Summit, that those are top tier, high signal events.
Yeah, definitely. I would encourage anybody, if you are into heat reuse or even if you don't know anything about it, that was just such an educational summit. I would encourage anybody to go to Heat Punks. I'm pretty sure they're scheduling it for year number 2, so grab your tickets early because I think it's going to be sold out.
Yeah, and you touched on it too there, right? Like they're a tight knit group of people, right? This is sort of like the original cypherpunks. Like it's a very tight knit group, and these people aren't pretentious at all. They're very much beginner friendly people, right? Like you could just have the most basic questions about, I don't even mine at all right now, but I need to heat my house, and you can come in there and talk about that, and they're happy to help you out. Or you could have very technical questions, and there's so many brilliant minds in that group. That are happy to help share their builds and put you in the right direction. So, yeah, we got a lot of love for those guys.
It was awesome because there is a clear overlap. If there was a Venn diagram, they'd be completely overlapped with the open source community and the heat punks because everybody's there to help and solve problems, to give recommendations, to tell you kind of their experience and how to fix anything for your experience. So heat punks and open source are hand in hand, but I totally agree with that.
Awesome, man. Let's get back to the NerdQX plus Hydro. In terms of the the three guiding goals that you laid out, which was sparking curiosity, delivering high performance, and pushing innovation, can you share a specific design choice or feature that you feel really embodies each of those goals with the build?
Yeah, so obviously for the first one, for sparking curiosity and drawing attention, it was the LED lighting. That was a must for us. So they're what's called addressable LED lighting. And what that means is each miner comes with a remote control. So you can change, there's over 200 different lighting settings that you can change. You can pick what color you want the lights to be. You can add animations like you're seeing behind me. It can go through an entire slideshow of changing the LED colors. You can dim the lights, you can speed them up, you can turn them on and off if you want, just like, if you're tired of the lights, just turn them off, just have the thing running as normal. But that LED lighting was so key to draw those eyeballs because it's aesthetically pleasing. You know, you see it with a bunch of gaming setups. You see it with people decorating man caves in their rooms and their offices. Lights change emotion, and we wanted to embody that with this build. So that was definitely the choice for number one. Number two, the high performance, was the all-in-one cooling. So we have other builds that you have to basically build your own setup, which is great for particular circumstances. But having everything ready to go right out of the box with an all-in-one cooler is huge. You know, it eliminates any hassle from people needing to know anything about water cooling. You literally just pull this out of the box, you plug it in, it works. There's no learning curve at all. And it performs so well. The all-in-one cooler that we designed has a pure copper base plate, so copper conducts heat extremely well. It has micro-channel grooves in it, so it extends the surface area. It helps water to collect more heat. And then it pumps it to a radiator where it's exhausted by a fan, and it's all in a sealed, closed loop. So there, you never have to, again, put in coolant. And it keeps your ASICs running extremely cool. So that was obviously number two, the performance. And then pushing the boundaries was the new form factor. There's a lot that has to go into building this because of the water cooling component. You know, you have to think about how to cool your voltage regulators. So we have active voltage regulation cooling with a small fan on the back. We have to think about the design. So it's at an angle because we actually have the fan behind it so it can pull cold air over the rest of the board, keeping your components nice and cool. So pushing the boundaries on really the entire design of this was fun, but also tough. You know, it's hard to take something brand new where you have a new cooling solution, you have kind of a new product, and pushing the boundaries on what's out there now. So really the entire process would be number three.
Beautiful. And I've got a question about the lights. Is there a lifespan on those, or are these something that people can replace on their own easily, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, good question. So the actual LEDs are not replaceable. You'd have to get in there and solder them and stuff like that. But the entire all-in-one unit is easily replaceable. So you just unscrew it from the stand in the back. It would remove the fan and the radiator. And you unscrew it from the stand in the front, which removes, from the PCB, which removes the actual cold plate in the pump. And then you can just swap on another all-in-one cooler. So all of our parts on here are rated for 50,000 hours. That's the minimum rating on the fan, on the pump, on the coolant, on the LEDs, things like that. So it's built to last. Time will tell. I mean, obviously we haven't tested these things for 5 years, but they're built to last for a long time. But we also kept modularity in mind because if one component does fail, you can simply swap it out. We don't want you to have to buy an entire new miner just because one thing fails. And that's what you see with a lot of proprietary mining. You know, you have a couple chips go bad and you have to take out the entire board and get it serviced and replaced. With this, if something goes bad, you just can replace that component. We want to keep costs low. We want to make it convenient for users to be able to do that so you can keep this thing running for a long time.
Beautiful. And I think that's a very important part. And you touched on it for me a little bit there. But as these things get more powerful and they have more chips and more innovation, they are becoming more expensive. And in time, that will come down. But besides that, it's important that people can replace things as they need to keep their unit running and not need to buy a whole new unit. So I think, you know, the companies, the builders, the creators, the innovators that keep that in mind, that modularity, are going to win out in the long run for sure. There's nothing worse than buying something and it bricks or it breaks in technology in general, not just in the mining space. And you need to buy a whole new unit. You can't just replace the part. So
exactly. Yeah.
I love that. And I really respect how you can just pull that thing out of the box. It's shipped to your house. You open it up, you plug it in, set up your pool. You're good to go. I think
100%. Yeah.
Very important because it is a technical thing for some people that are just completely new to this, right? So the less they have to do, the better. Just pull it out, plug it in, and you're good to go. I think that's going to be a huge draw.
I agree. We've been in the cooling space for a long time. We've worked with direct to chip for a long time, but it's important to remember that not many people are like that. They want something that you can get all the performance and the aesthetics from, that you don't have to know the physics behind water cooling and how to connect different water connections. We don't want it to leak. So that out of the box, ready to go, just plug and play was really big and important for building this.
Yeah, just make it work right out of the box. That's the way
Exactly.
to go. Awesome, man. Well, I know the launch is coming soon. We're not going to name exact dates here,
Yeah.
but what I do want to pull out of you is sort of what you can tell us about the development process and how did you go about balancing the excitement of getting this bad boy out into the wild and the need to ensure that it's ready and working properly for the community that's about to buy it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's tough to balance because you want to tell everybody about it. You want to shout it from the rooftops. You want to share pictures right away of this thing running. But it's really important to ensure quality before we do that. So, again, we've been building on this for months now. We've been testing things for months. We've gone through many iterations. We work with professional manufacturers to develop every single part to spec. And all of that takes a lot of time. So, in our eyes, this product's been around forever. But in reality, we've been working behind the scenes to ensure that everything functions as it should before we release it to the public. So that's we've been building up to our release date. It is coming soon, but there's been a ton of work that's gone in before that to ensure this thing's going to work well for many years to come.
Amazing. Let's jump into the product highlights of the NerdQaxe Plus Hydro. I know it has a sleek, modern design, the customizable LED lighting. It's beautiful to look at. Why was it important to focus on the aesthetics? And how do you think this is going to resonate with home miners who want their setups to look as good as they perform?
Yeah, I think that's very important because it's almost having your cake and eating it too. If you can have a miner and it can look good and function well and have lighting, why would you not prefer that, And that was kind of our motto going in is we want to keep costs as low as possible, but we want to deliver a product that is sleek and aesthetically pleasing. When you have miners, and I can tell you about the industrial side of them, when you have these giant metal shoeboxes that are roaring in your basement, producing a ton of heat, that's not that fun. You don't want to have that out in public. You don't want that sitting on your kitchen table. But if you can take a miner and make it basically a piece of art that functions as a miner at the same time, I think that's going to be a product that people like. So it really is developing both sides of it. There's no reason why a miner can't be aesthetically pleasing, beautiful, high performance, and work as an open source miner. It just has to be built, and that's what we tried to build. So balancing that, but knowing that it's not one or the other, we can actually do all of it at once. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is definitely a step forward because as of now, we haven't really seen anybody try to do that. At least in terms of focusing on the aesthetics, it's all about the performance, which is the most important thing. Obviously, yep. I'm sure we both agree on that. But why not? Once you've nailed down the performance aspect of things, try to spice things up a little bit and make it look appealing to have on your desk.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean that's huge. Like I said, if you're running industrial miners in a warehouse that no one's seeing, they don't have to look good. But if you have this as a home miner, as a true home miner, and it's sitting on your desk, you're not going to want a shoebox, a piece of junk sitting there, if it functions the same as a beautiful, aesthetically pleasing miner. So that's exactly the goal.
Awesome. Let's talk about the noise reduction. It's a huge deal for home miners. It's potentially the reason why somebody doesn't run an industrial unit like an S19 or something. And the NerdQaxe Plus Hydro is described as a whisper quiet device. So how did you achieve this, and what kind of impact do you expect that to have for home miners running these units in their homes or their apartments, things like that?
Yeah, good question. I'm very familiar with the loud noises. As I was explaining earlier, one of my key moments in heat reuse was hearing those miners roaring in my basement every single night. So I know exactly what you're talking about. So reducing the noise is very important to me. But it really goes back to what I was talking about before. When you have direct-to-chip cooling and when you have liquid cooling, you can capture that heat in liquid and you can exhaust it over a large surface area. So imagine right now if you have a tiny chip, you have to blow a ton of air over that chip or that heat sink in order to dissipate that heat. But if you capture that heat in water and you put it over a very high surface area radiator, again, you can have fans that spin very slow to draw enough air over to cool that miner. So that was really one of the big breakthroughs here too, is not only do you get better cooling on the ASIC side, but you can really run these. We've tested them. We've been running them at 20 or 30% fan speed, getting perfectly cool ASICs, but reducing our noise level to where you barely can hear it. So that is the key to us, was reducing that noise as well, because you don't want to have this thing sitting next to you if it's roaring. So keeping it nice and whisper quiet was really a key attribute that we were aiming for.
Yeah, that's huge. As you can see, I've got my miners back here, and noises. Yeah, you don't want to be sitting in a room trying to focus on something, and these things are buzzing in your head, and you can't get it out of there. So it's definitely, it's great to have that level of efficiency with that level of noise reduction going on. I think that's going to be a big draw for sure, and
Exactly.
keeping the performance high and not sacrificing there to keep it quiet and cool at the same time is going to be a big win.
I agree. And I think moving, as a quick note, moving forward, as we're seeing more multi-chip models come out with higher power densities, we're also working on the Q++, so stay tuned for that. But as you're putting more power into these miners, they're going to get louder and louder if you only use cooling fans and heat sinks. So again, our third goal was to really push the boundaries of what was possible. Form factors in the future are going to require better cooling solutions if we keep moving forward. So that was sort of our introduction, is like, hey, we can use hydro, we can keep things nice and quiet while high performing, so you can put more power into a unit without having it roaring next to you. So again, this was made for right now, but also with the idea in mind that in the future, we're going to need cooling solutions like this.
Awesome. It's good to be future proofing for sure.
Definitely.
The build quality includes a durable powder-coated steel stand, high-efficiency PSU, and a 7A fuse for safety. I was wondering if you could just talk about the engineering decisions behind choices like that and how they ensure reliabilities for us.
Yeah, for sure. We wanted this thing to perform well. That was our second goal, is performance. We want it to be high performing. We know people like to play with the settings on these to overclock them, but you have to do that responsibly. And on some models that cut corners, if you're pushing through a ton of power through your PSU and it's not rated for a high wattage, you're going to blow your PSU. You're going to overheat it. It becomes dangerous. So everything in mind, we wanted to allow people to, experiment and to play with those higher overclock settings, but also limiting it in a way. You don't want to go too crazy. You don't want to put yourself in danger. You don't want to put your house in danger of burning down. So, for example, having a steel case. Everything's contained on a steel case. It's not a flammable plastic. It's not another material. It's not going to burn if something were to happen. Having that 7-amp fuse that allows you to overclock a little bit, but doesn't give you ability to really, hurt anything on the miner. Having the PSU, it's 120 watts, so there's always like a rule of thumb to maintain 80% of that rated value, or else you're stressing the PSU too much. So it allows you that overhead to experiment, to overclock, to have fun with the machine without putting the machine or yourself in jeopardy.
Awesome. All right, man. We've come to the question which you're probably going to hate me a little bit for, but this is my job. I got to dig in, and I got to lean on you for a little bit of alpha here.
Let's do it.
For the plebs, for the tech enthusiasts in the audience that are listening to this, and I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of them because this is a super cool invention. Can you share any performance metrics or testing results that highlight the efficiency of the NerdQaxe Plus Hydro and any hash rate potential compared to what we're working with now with our current BitX models?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not going to say too much, but we consistently are running this thing 20 joules per terahash or below, which is pretty standard. We haven't really pushed it as far as efficiency goes. In addition, we're maintaining chip temperatures that are in the 40 degrees. We've never actually pushed it into 50s or higher, so we're taking care of the ASIC chips. And then as far as how hard we push it, we only go up to what the UI in the NerdQaxe firmware will allow. So again, we're doing that because we want to maintain a level of safety. We don't want to push it too hard. But what I'll say is this thing has taken every single thing we've thrown at it without budging. It is very hard to get the ASIC chips hot. We can keep the fans running nice and cool. Even at 60% on the highest overclock settings, we're looking at very cool chip temperatures in the low 40s on an average temperature ambient room. So that's kind of all I'll share right now, but it'll be interesting really to see what the community does for it, because this is going to be tinkered with and played with. We're sure people are going to push it to the limit, so I'm excited to kind of see how it goes. I wouldn't recommend pushing it above UI limits just to maintain safety, but again, that's all I'll say for now.
We know you guys are going to do it anyways. That's just what we do in the in the home mining space. But yes, good advice. A word of caution. Run it as it's supposed to be run for best results. But I can already see people just itching to get their hands on this thing and seeing if they can break it, seeing how good they can get it to perform, and tinker with it. So that'll be exciting. I look forward to all the X posts and the OSMU posts about it. It'll be amazing to see it come to life and see what people can do to it.
Yes, it will. Again, word of caution, don't push it too hard. That's just me. Quick disclaimer.
Quick disclaimer. That's fair. That's fair. You said that you're confident that the NerdQaxe plus Hydro meets all three of its original goals. Looking back at the development journey, what do you think's been the most rewarding part of bringing this product to life for you?
I would say, so we have some test units that we've handed out to specific partners to test, to put through the paces. And, when you plug them all in next to each other and they're all synced to the same LED settings, their light shows are going off, they're mining super quietly and efficiently, and they're all sitting on the workbench in front of you. To me, that was a really cool full circle moment, because again, I started as a pleb miner. I'm still a pleb miner. So to start with my cell phone and learn all about mining, to then producing our own Bitcoin miners for home mining and having them all sit there functioning perfectly, that was cool. That was really just like a thankful moment that I had for the journey that we've all been on, or that we've been on at Cryobite, and where we are today.
That's amazing, man, and inspiring too. Not a lot of people have the longevity to see it through to the extent that you have. Just starting your journey in 2012 and then being here 13 years later and saying, what can I contribute? How can I make something that's going to, really impact people and stand the test of time and push innovation further forward? I think that's definitely something that would feel really rewarding. So kudos to you for doing that, for having the courage to create something this different and this new and this exciting.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a good journey and fulfilling.
The home mining community is growing a lot, right? And Cryobite is clearly passionate about supporting it by everything you've talked about today. What would your message be to builders, miners, and curious minds who are thinking about joining the movement or getting their hands on the NerdQaxe plus Hydro?
Yeah, I'd say you're never too late. I think a lot of people see Bitcoin and they're like, "Oh, I missed the boat. I didn't make $1 billion off of Bitcoin. I'm too late." And that's not true at all. I mean, we are still extremely early in this whole thing. I can tell you that from, 13 years ago even. I thought I was late to the boat, and here we are, and I think we're still early. So my encouragement would be get involved in any way you can. The industry is still young. It's going to grow massively, whether it's mining or anything that has to do with Bitcoin in general. So get your hands on something, start tinkering, start building, connect with groups, connect with communities. That's one thing I wish I would have done earlier. I thought I was the only one working on these problems, and turns out there's a lot of people out there that are. So it's really just a call to action. That would be my advice, is get started. You're not too late. The industry is going to be huge in decades to come. So get started now.
Yeah, in reality, once you look outside of this little bubble that we're all in, we're so stupid early. It's still like the average person has no understanding of Bitcoin mining, let alone the kind of innovative tools like what we're talking about here today. So it's definitely not too late to get started and to start just digging into the basics and running your first BitX, your first NerdQaxe, getting your hands dirty and seeing if this is something for you. So I think that's great advice. Are you guys at Cryobite like self-funded? Do you have partners supporting like the development of this? What does that look like?
Yeah, we're all self-funded. Again, this was a bootstrap mission. I have funded the majority of development. We have another partner who helps as well, but we're all self-funded. We don't have VCs. We're not some big proprietary mining empire. We're just trying to build cool products that people use that can help spur the Bitcoin revolution. So, yeah.
Respect. I like that. That was one curiosity that just popped up as we were talking here, and so it's good to know that your decisions going into the product and everything from then on is how you want it to be, and not beholden to somebody with money above you.
Exactly. I've loved that too. I mean, that's been a relief for me, being able to create products that I know people will like and not having some ulterior motive behind it, which is great.
Fantastic, man. Well, as we wrap up, can you give us a sneak peek into what's next for Cryobite Labs after the NerdQaxe Plus Hydro launch? I know you mentioned the Plus Plus. Are there any new innovations or projects on the horizon that you are super excited for?
Oh yeah. I'm not going to drop too much alpha, unfortunately, but
Come
there
on.
there are a lot of different things you can do with a hydro miner, which makes it pretty fascinating. So, think about different colors, think about different customations, think about different use cases for what a miner might be used for. All of that is now open in kind of free game by adding the hydro component to it. So we have all that on the plate, and I'll be sharing more, as that drops.
All right, fantastic. Well, everybody can follow you at Ryan_Ramminger or at Cryobite Labs on X if they want to stay tuned to what you're releasing next, which you're keeping close to your chest. But follow him on X so you guys can keep up to date on that. Is there anything else you want to leave us with, Ryan?
You can actually stay connected to this brand in particular, too. If you follow NerdQaxe Hydro on X, just NerdQaxe Hydro, all one word. Again, we're going to be releasing more models, more brands, more customization, more products down the road. So follow that as well. But again, this has been great for me. I've been so fulfilled by this journey, starting as a home miner, being able to be on your podcast about home mining and releasing our first ever home miner. So thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody out there that's helped along the way.
It was an absolute pleasure. Thanks for sharing everything that you shared with us today. And your passion is palpable. I'm sure everyone will appreciate your innovation and your energy and your passion in building this. And with that being said, that's a wrap on this episode of the Home Mining Podcast. A massive respect to Ryan for delivering real talk, actionable insights on Bitcoin home mining, and pushing the boundaries. Stay locked in with us at Home Mining Pod for more episodes that hit hard and keep you ahead in the game in the home mining space. Until next time, fire up your rigs, keep those ASICs humming, secure the network, and keep hashing.
Heck yeah.
See you guys in the next one.